on to agenda item number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one is also a rezoning request by Andrew Duren to rezone 3.27 acres from conditional CC zoning to regular CC zoning. Property is located at 417 Brookfield Road. This is along the east side of the road, right at the Murray and Brookfield Road intersection. Property is currently vacant. They're proposing to develop it as a commercial cluster of 4 buildings with the applicant's business, which is a flooring company, to be located in the larger of the buildings. To go through the maps, you see the zoning pattern in the area is mixed with commercial zoning, RP, as well as some planned residential zoning from long ago. Property is currently vacant here. Surrounding uses follow a general character area pattern of neighborhood activity center, which allows up to CC zoning. It is along collector streets. In this case, Murray and Brookfield are collectors. We see the other patterns of established residential, which reflect the PRD zonings of those residential neighborhoods. The aerial imagery shows the pattern in a little more detail with the rooftops. You see this vacant subject property. Also directly to the northwest is some other vacant property that is zoned currently regular CC. The main feature on this property is a 100-foot wide Georgia power easement, which crosses through almost the middle from east to west. The history of the property is outlined in your packet. It goes all the way back to 2004, 21 years ago, when this was a county island, zoned highway commercial at that time. They were requesting highway commercial zoning in the city. It was apparently a controversial rezoning hearing at that time. City Council granted approval of CC zoning with conditions. And what's interesting there is the condition is that it be CN, or neighborhood commercial uses only. The reason is they wanted, I believe from reading the minutes, the uses that were down at the CN level, but to hold the property to the CC development standards, which allow for larger signage, different impervious, but also larger buffer yards against the neighborhood. So that's the way it's been zoned for 21 years. It's been available for sale all of that time. It has not been sold or developed yet. We have had some inquiries, at least in the past 15 years. Most of the inquiries I've been told about involved a larger building to go on the site, that they wanted to be in the middle of the property, but the 100-foot power easement with the large overhead power lines kept that from happening. In this case, it's a proposal also for commercial use, but the site plan seems to work. So in your packet, you have a copy of the boundary survey. You see the power easement that very much hinders development on this property, at least in terms of buildings. But also in your packet is the conceptual site plan from the applicant or the applicant's engineer. And this is where north is to the left. And so you see the large parking lot in the center of the site. And if you look closely at the dashed lines, the 100-foot wide power easement goes across 100 feet of width of the parking lot. So this applicant, with their engineer, has found a way to put some buildings on there with parking under the power easement and the buildings around it. Their proposed business would be on the building to the north, which is on the left side of your screen, a 20,000 square foot flooring business to run their business out of. It's an existing business that would relocate to this site. And then the rest of the property, which is the southern portion, on this site plan shows 3 buildings, totaling about almost another 20,000 square feet. I think one of them, they have a tenant in mind for that. These would be also lower traffic generators, like another material store or contractor's offices. Anything beyond that is probably going to generate more parking demand, which is going to mean smaller buildings. So what I think you're looking at here is the maximum scenario, at least in terms of building area. But they have found a way to make commercial development of this site work when it comes to the power easement. Imagery, subject property, this is the northern part. I'm standing right under the power line easement, looking northward up Brookfield. Looking east back toward the Blue Pool neighborhood, which is to the east. There's been a history there of pedestrian and cut-through traffic. You can see a path has been worn out through the subject property. I know the current owner of the property has struggled with that for a number of years, but it is an owner that does not live locally, so it's a little harder for them to monitor. And then looking southward across the subject property to the Brookfield Academy, which is the large daycare center to the south, which also has CC zoning. Adjacent properties, this is looking southward down Brookfield. That's the Latitude 30 apartment complex there in the screen, which is directly diagonal to the west-southwest. Looking westward down Murray Road, and here you see that other vacant commercial tract there on the right that is also zoned regular CC. And then the closer view across the intersection, and then that's the rooftop of the Walmart there in the background. And then otherwise it's just the zoning packet. So you see the zoning pattern, the little C stands for the conditions. Both this property and the daycare property have conditional zoning. The other property is regular CC, and then you see the mixed pattern. But given the history of the property, its long tenure being vacant under the current zoning, and the more dominance of commercial zoning along this road intersection, staff has found the rezoning request consistent with our comprehensive plan, our standards for exercise of zoning power, which are outlined in your packet, and we are recommending approval of cleaning up the zoning map to go from conditional CC to regular CC. Glad to answer any questions you may have. Oh, one other note in your packet too is a comparison of the CC and CN zoning districts, which is not a comparison we often see here, but it is there in your packet. And you see there's still a lot of similarities between these two zoning districts.
So what they're, I'm sorry.
No.
So what they're wanting to do, they cannot do it with the condition.
Correct. Well, they could and they couldn't. The flooring business in CN zoning requires a conditional use permit. So that's their other option, was to seek that approval and leave the zoning alone. But when I met with them and then seeing the conditions on this property, which I find awkward, and the rezoning to CC gets them to the same thing, but also allows a broader range of uses for those other buildings. I had suggested they seek the rezoning instead of the conditional use.
There aren't many differences between the CN and
The main difference is automotive type uses. Alcohol sales is another one that's different, but typically the CN commercial buildings are smaller. The super Walmart that you see up off the screen is zone CH, but it's actually a CC type use if you can get it to fit. The one thing with this property that helps is the power easement that goes through the middle. It keeps really from anything larger from locating there.
Further questions for staff? All right, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this case?
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Brantley at 701 North Patterson Street, Boston. And I represent the applicant and also the prospective purchaser of the property. The property is currently owned by State and Plantation LLP and has been owned for quite some time by State and Plantation. The property has been for sale for quite some time, for 21 years or so, after this unusual zoning was implemented. And this may be the first time that you've ever had a rezoning request to go from CC to CC. It confused me a little bit myself when I initially reviewed it, but it's because of the conditions that are put on the zoning type, that the uses have to conform to the CN zoning type. So what my clients are hoping to do here is build a flooring showroom for Little River Flooring, which is the flooring company that they own, and they also want to build some office space down on the south side of the property. The flooring showroom under CN zoning would require a conditional use permit. Additionally, for the office space, my clients are considering putting in a contractor's office, not where a construction company would be run out of, but an office where clients can come and meet, look at plans. So CN zoning would also you not just ask for a conditional use permit instead of going all the way to CC zoning? Well, for one, Matt's recommendation was to go ahead and proceed with the rezoning process. But secondly, we don't really know what other tenants are going to be in these other office buildings here. So, we need some flexibility, really. We want to give them the opportunity to come right into the building. Now, of course, they have to comply with whatever the requirements of the CC zoning are, but we don't want them to have to come before you again every time we get a new tenant to ask for a conditional use permit. So it's really just to simplify and streamline the whole process. This is a unique property, and it's really unique because of the zoning type, and it's also unique because of this Georgia Power easement. The Georgia Power easement, it's 100 foot wide. It goes, right through the middle of the property. So it really limits what you can and cannot do with the property. I think the engineers have come up with a really clever plan to maximize the use of the acreage on this property. And it's pretty much to put the parking underneath the Georgia Power easement. There's a line running out there right now. So you could never build a building on it. But it's to put the larger building on the north end, and then to put the 3 office buildings down on the south end. So my clients intend to, they want to make a nice building. They want to have a nice facade, professional offices in these buildings. They want to have some kind of stacked stone. It'll be metal buildings, but they want to have it dressed up and looking good on the outside. This property needs to be developed. It's in a prime location. It's right in the area where there's a lot of other commercial development. The Walmart's real close by, Mac Lumber's real close by. You've got the daycare down on the south end. So there's a mixed type of use in that area. The comprehensive plan supports the transition to the CC zoning. They're wanting to do a nice development. Matt's right. There's been a problem about this property being a bit of a thoroughfare from Blue Pool. Not only has there been a lot of pedestrian traffic, there's also been vehicle traffic. So I know that the city's had quite a few problems dealing with that. The client is wanting to, they're proposing to put fencing all along the back, put a bigger vegetative buffer than what's typically required. They're wanting to basically block it off. And I know that the city's had, there's been comments about in the past, they want to kind of cut off that strip being the thoroughfare from Oak Street over to Bemis Road. And I've heard in the past that they intentionally did not extend Murray Road over across into the area where Blue Pool was, because they didn't want vehicular traffic to be able to cut through off of Oak Street over to Bemis Road. So I think that what we're proposing here would help in that area. So we're asking for your recommendation of approval. We've got a pretty good plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. If I don't know the answers to them, my clients are here. They're sitting right back here, and they'll be happy to come up and answer your questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Is the intent to keep it as professional offices? I know there are a lot of other types of uses that are permitted in the CC zone. And so just, from the standpoint of understanding that the intent is to develop it in a way so that it's going to be used for XYZ purposes and not, some of the other uses that may, I won't say necessarily conflict with the nursery next door, but just to, that would be, that could be used as something else.
Yes, sir. The intent is to keep it as professional offices. It is not to operate a construction company out of any of the offices. I know that there's been some questions that have been posed to staff about whether there'll be any businesses in this development that would serve alcohol, and particularly, it's concerning because there's a daycare right next door, and my clients are ready to commit to that there will not be any alcohol served in any of these buildings, and any of the businesses that occupy these buildings.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this case?
Hi, my name is Donna Smith, and I represent the Murray Staten Estate, and have been representing them for 28 years. Want to say hey to you guys, thank you for the work in the county, good to see you. Matt, your staff, thank you, and to the commission, been on the market consistently for sale. Our property owner has been very particular about choosing who he deems appropriate for the location. When the adjoining property was sold to Brookfield Child Care Facility, we made a commitment. They have over 325 children enrolled. We made a commitment to watch what was going to happen next to them so that they would be safe. And the same thing for the apartments. Matt Mackey, and I was involved in every transaction that happened on the road, and they were all placed strategically and neighborly for the purpose. So when Drew came along, we were just fresh on the market, maybe 3 or 5 days. He went through his entire plan. We took that plan to the property owner for approval before signing a purchase and sale agreement and moving forward. With that being said, Drew has agreed in his contract and also with his development plans to, the property owner goes way above and beyond development standards. So there's a stack zone requirement, there's parking lot requirement, we have a tree species requirement to replace crepe myrtles. So we're all in agreement with those things. I think the development is conducive and compatible and safer than the way that the property is now. With that being said, the property is now in the hands of the 6th generation. So we have started, we have a new executor of the estate. So we have Gray's son, Daniel Murray, is the executor of the estate now. As you need to know, purposes, I think he signed all the documents. He's a builder as well, out of Homewood/Birmingham, Alabama. He was very pleased with the review of what they're going to do. So I just wanted to be here to represent the property owners. If you have any questions, I'm available for those answers and to speak in support. And again, thank you for your commitment to the community.
Any questions for us, sir? All right, that exhausts our time for the in favor of portion of this public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this case?
Good afternoon to you, Commissioners. My name is Jacqueline Major. I live at 346 Brookfield Road. I am literally a stone's throw from where this building is being proposed. My concern is the grid that this proposal is coming on. This area has no throughway to the south portion of Brookfield, where I live, 346. The throughway is to the north portion that takes you out by the Walmart that everyone keeps referring to, that is supposed to be a position for a commercial building. But that Walmart faces inner perimeter with every other business up and down in a perimeter. So it cannot be used to balance the fact that they're trying to move a commercial building into what is now all residential area. The only thing in that area that is not residential is the daycare center. There are homes to the south in which I live in. My concern is the grid. Every time the wind blows, we lose power and we lose cable. Already, without anything else being built in this area. I work from home. During Ibelia and Helene, I was at the mercy of my employers because obviously in a storm they were sympathetic, but with a new building coming in, I don't know what's going to need to be turned on. I don't know what's going to need to be turned off. My employer is out of Marietta, Georgia, so it's not like I can pack my life up and move into my office building. My home is my office building. So I am very concerned about the grid that this proposal is being done on. If you do not strengthen it, then we are going to have problems as residents because we're already having problems. Over the weekend, Mediacom just went down for no reason. They still haven't told me why our cable went. There is a divide between Colquitt and Georgia Power in this area. When Ibelia came through, we lost power for 14 days. And you will say, well, Ms. Major, there was a storm and everyone lost power. We were the last areas in Valdosta to have our power restored. It only came after a complaint to EMC headquarters that we were still without power. There is something about the way this grid is already set up that they don't even monitor us to know whether power is running through it or not. So multiple concerns. Water is already pooling right in the front of this 417 Brookfield Road. When it rains, the water stops right there at that stop sign. I don't know what's going to happen to that runoff when you start excavating and digging and putting in pipes and electricity and things of that nature. And lastly, there is a drainage issue already on Brookfield Road. The city of Valdosta has been out. I have lived here now for 3 years, next month. The city of Valdosta has been out 4 times since I moved into this neighborhood as a homeowner. And the neighborhood's name is Somerset. Once in front of my home, the pipes, water starts coming up out of the cement. They had to come, excavate the area, cut out the large portion of the cement, dig it out, repair the pipe that's underneath it, and no sooner than they repaired my pipe 4 months later, the neighbor 2 doors down, they had to repair the pipe in that area, and when I left my home to come here, there are orange cones in front of another neighbor where they're working on that same pipeline to restore it because the water just starts coming up out of the ground. So we've already got issues with drainage, we've got issues with power, and we've got issues with cable. And all I ask is the consideration that if anything is to be done in this area, if you do approve this rezoning, please think about the neighbors that are going to be impacted by this. We need to be considered as well. We need to know that our lights are going to stay on, that our cable is going to be accessible, because I think we need to be considered in this rezoning as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bakers. Is there anyone else who would like to speak out?
Hello, everybody. My name is Pastor Michael Hazard. I live at 351 Sawgrass Drive. If you click on those pictures back, you can see my house is directly behind that. And the problem is the thoroughfare, that picture right there, where that thing is right there. There used to be poles up that they put up to stop people from driving through. During the hurricane, the electric company knocked them down, and they never replaced it. Then you had to drive through the cars and the traffic and all that. That's where that came from. But before the hurricane, we didn't have that problem. That is also accessible for people who don't have vehicles, older people who can't drive. They'll take a buggy to go to Walmart, to go to Publix. That makes it accessible for them to get there. If not, they have to go all the way up to be mixed, and then go all the way down and all the way around. And that's not feasible for anybody. That don't even make sense. If you don't have a vehicle, if they cut that off, they can at least make it accessible. But even beyond that, like she said, the flooding is ridiculous. That land itself floods. The street floods. And then our street is fine in the front, but my backyard, when it rains, it floods. So if we put something else there and you put a wall there, now you're stopping any drainage. Now we have a pool in our backyard that we didn't ask for. And then we do have the problem with electricity and everything else with cutting off and all of that. So this thing being here, there's another lot that's available that's across the street that would have been perfect for them because it would have butted right against Walmart. And that would have been perfect for them to put that building there. But instead they chose this building around a bunch of houses and a daycare center. So I for one, would not want to change and let it stay as the condition because it's viable for everybody who just bought houses. New people are buying houses every day. We just had a new person move in 2 months ago. A serviceman just moved in 2 months ago. So we're having new people move in and with families. And so they haven't experienced what we've already experienced. But we've only been here a year. We stayed in this neighborhood for almost 3 years. We stayed in apartments across the street, the latitude 30. We stayed there, and then we moved over here. We bought our house. We've seen the flooding. We've experienced the flooding. And then now you want to put more traffic in an area that's already trafficked with just a daycare center. So now you have more traffic in a condensed area that you got to worry about with the daycare center. Now with a new building, then you want to put more office space with more traffic coming in that little itty bitty space. If they want to build that same building, they can go across the street. That lot is available, and they can purchase that, and that would be perfectly fine, because that will be where all the other buildings are. That's my stand for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. We've got time for one more. I've got someone in the back of the room that's been trying to get up here.
My name is Anthony Rowe, and I own Anthony Company Spa Salon on Murray Road. I've been there for 22 years, and I've done great business with the state and family and Mr. Murray. I'm here just to give you a little insight on the goods and the bad. I'm for it. The piece that you showed where the concrete was, I called the city several times, just in and out of traffic going through there. We need some more businesses, but looking on your plan, if you'll pull up the one that shows the layout of all the buildings, I don't see any retention ponds on there, and as the lady was speaking about, where I am straight down the road from that, we do have a flooding problem there. I was required to put considerable amount of plants on my property, which was, the lady had never seen so much on one, over 3 acres. But I just feel like it's a great opportunity to develop the area with a professional business. I believe there should be a variance on what kind of business you can run out. As the gentleman said, we don't want years down the road that if something was to fail, a liquor store or a vape shop or less desirable businesses. I did have one concern about the carpet place. Is it going to be a showroom only, or will it be a showroom and warehouse? That would cause concern for neighboring people with forklifts that have to use the backup people. But I'm for it, but just want to give you some insight about what we're from. Thank you.
Wait, we have a question.
No, I'm sorry, I think my question is for Matt. Matt, is this the underground water retention system?
It's not underground. If you look on this side plan at the hatched area that goes around the perimeter, that is all stormwater management ponds,
Okay,
on 3 sides of the property.
okay.
It looks to me like their engineer has put that strategically to capture any and all runoff from this site to the neighbors that are down.
Well, I
there.
know a lot of the commercial businesses are using the underground water, stormwater management, so I wasn't sure if that's what that was.
If you look at that hexagonal hatch, that's
Yeah.
stormwater facility.
Okay,
So
thank
for
you.
clarification from Matt, with regards, so I understand that for the sake of visibility, all of this here is stormwater management. So to catch, the stormwater basically surrounding the entire property except for the side closest to the daycare center, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Do we know, and I know, the engineers can speak to roughly what that capacity is, and it sounds as if, if I were to look at the plans, and if they were of adequate depth, the capacity for them to hold a lot of what sounds like the drainage concerns that you mentioned.
It would have to. This is brand new development. It would be subject to all new development standards, including stormwater. I don't think they have done the detailed hydrology report yet, but obviously a preliminary one have factored into their design. And quite frankly, this is more stormwater management area than I would have expected.
That's all I was asking if it's underground, because
You know,
you
there's,
usually don't see this much.
there's a lot here, and I don't know what the depths are.
And I want to add to that if I could.
We've already,
Party closed.
Okay.
yeah, closed the public hearing.
And what's not showing on this plan, of course, they will be required a full landscape plan that includes buffer yards. Because there's residential zoning to the north and the east, that is a full buffer yard required there. Buffer yard in terms of, not buffer yard, but a street yard is required along Brookfield.
And I believe
Within the parking area as well.
I believe you mentioned as well, with regards to the buffer yards, the developer was intending to put more than kind of the standard landscaping.
Correct, that is something over and above the city's development standards. This is the owner of this property and other properties nearby that are commercial. That owner has a tradition of imposing their own development standards in the form of deed restrictions. That goes into architectural details, site lighting, and landscaping.
Okay, so there are deed restrictions, there are some restrictions that are already established with the acquisition.
They're in the contract for sale.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment also, though,
integrity concern.
Matt, would they be even eligible for a liquor store based on the distance?
It depends on distances to other stores. I would think they could not be too close to the door of the daycare center. And it's not a long distance
It's formidable in
anyway.
CC, it just depends on how many
Right,
feet
yeah.
from.
And there's a difference between package sales and pouring license.
Right.
Would it hurt anything to put it on?
That would be a question for the applicant. I mean, from my discussions with them and what they're showing on the site plan, that is not one of their,
Yeah, I think other guidelines are gonna.
I just heard them say that they didn't have any plans to put it there, and they, the others, there's been some with concerns. So even though the location may not allow it, we don't know that, because we're not pulling the tape on it right now. And they agree, they said they weren't gonna put it there, and if they have any issues with it, don't have any issues with
I
it.
mean, I think if we start conditioning out, we could be conditioning out all day long. We can come up with all kinds of things that we can condition out. So,
I have one other question, is you mentioned that, the deed restrictions, do you know if within the deed restrictions, if it does make reference to?
I do not know. That's a private matter between buyer and seller. The realtor who spoke made reference to those. She would know more details. The only comment I would have is as you look at this site plan, I mentioned that this is a maximum scenario in terms of building area. And that is simply because of the type uses that we're contemplating, i.e. a contractor's office or a flooring store. If CC zoning allows a wide range of retail uses, any retail use like that is going to eat up a lot of parking, which means it's going to forego or preclude these other buildings from coming in. So the flooring company itself that's in the large building, that large parking lot in the middle is pretty much dedicated to just that one use. The other building in the back to the top of the screen is going to use up a good portion of the remaining parking, which really means the rest of the site can only be professional offices with lower parking demand. If any of that were to go to retail or food service particularly, you were going to eliminate two, if not all three of those other buildings, or reduce the building size over there because of the amount of parking required. Same thing with the larger building. If it were to become a retail building, then by my estimation, all other buildings go away in order to accommodate the parking demand for it. So like I said, what you're looking at here is a maximum scenario in terms of building, but in terms of traffic generation, it's pretty low.
So you saying that they would not be able to put a liquor store in there?
Liquor store is going to be a retail outlet. They could, but they're going to have to make the rest of the site work, which means some of this that you see is going to have to give. And I think part of it is a likelihood scenario. This is not on an arterial roadway, which is typically where we see those uses. So that also precludes some of the other commercial uses as well.
Further questions for staff? All right.
So, with all the problems going on in this area, is there any plan the city got? I'm sure they know about water and the electric and everything, and I'm sure it's been going on for a while. Is there any plans that the city have to correct this problem in the future?
The city does not specifically that I'm aware of. The one comment I would make is for two issues. One, the cut-through traffic that's been an ongoing problem for years. One of the issues there is the owner is not present to keep an eye on things when it's here. With the property being sold and developed with an on-site owner, they will be there to watch their own property. That is something we've not had in the past 20 or 30 years. So I think that in itself would be an improvement. They have stated they would like to block that off. I had suggested maybe maintaining a pedestrian access there to see if the neighbors respect that or not. And that's up to them. They have the option of fencing off their property, the same as any other commercial development. I don't think they want, certainly no vehicle traffic cutting through. I don't think they want an overload of pedestrian traffic or vandalism. So I think that The other one has to do with site development. Right now, that is just a raw site of land. The only thing that's been built nearby are the streets themselves, which has its own drainage. Development on this site has got to comply with all new standards, and that includes stormwater particularly. And like you see on the site plan, it looks like they've thought ahead. And with the positioning of those stormwater features, I think it is likely to capture most all of the stormwater runoff. I think the daycare center doesn't show one, and I think that's because it's uphill. So, again, it's an engineering design that's being proposed. Buffer yard has to be factored into this. CC zoning next to residential is a 20-foot wide buffer yard. It can be reduced a few feet with the fence. Fence, I think, already exists on the north side, part of the east side, but they've got to make room for buffer yard and stormwater at the same time. So I think development of the site will help a lot of these problems by default.
I agree. I think development's gonna be the best thing for the flooding problem there because of the requirements for, groundwater management.
And
I agree about that. Sorry.
I do too. I'm looking at, again, based off of what's been provided from the engineering perspective, that they're planning to have only 62.8, or let's call it 63% that's impervious of the site. If anything, I don't know if the engineer plans to have any type of retention to allow, or at least detention to allow a slower release of the water potentially.
Yeah,
Those are
right, they have to comply with the city stormwater ordinance as well as the state law regarding stormwater. Another thing I would like to point out, before we go further down the rabbit hole, is we are not here to approve a site plan. Keep in mind, this property is currently zoned commercial. This site plan is fully eligible to be built as is under CC zoning with the condition of CN uses. So the only thing that changes is not the quantity of development, but simply the usage of the property. So all the new development regs apply anyway, regardless.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, we will entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, regarding VA-2025-08, a request to rezone 3.27 acres